أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We are still continuing on our reflections and perhaps a little more than a book club, but the source that we are going through for self-purification is the book from one of our great scholars. He is well known in Akhlaq. His work in Akhlaq is considered one of the best works of our scholars in the last few hundred years. And very extensive work he's done. And perhaps in the Shia school, he would be considered like the Farabi, who is considered the second teacher of Akhlaq for humanity. In fact, there's an interesting reflection here, I guess, something that if you are familiar with the Ilm al-Akhlaq and you have studied the history of it, one of the earliest works on Akhlaq that systematically put structure to the science of ethics and morality is Aristotle. In Islamic circles, in fact, the first one who referred to him as the first teacher is Farabi, who is one of the Islamic scholars from the other schools of thought, or from he is not considered a follower of Ahlul Bayt. The second one referred to as the second Muallim is again this Farabi himself is referred to typically as the second Muallim. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, the work of Allama Naraqi is considered after those basically he's considered the pioneer in this science to structure it and put it together. There's an important, I guess, reflection that needs to be made at this point, and I think it's important for everyone to consider this. Whenever we study sciences that are not, that may be somehow inspired by works of scholars or thinkers outside of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, some people get sensitive, and I want to make this point here very clear. For instance, there are some who, whenever it comes to Harfan, anyone who teaches Harfan or studies Harfan or speaks about Harfan, they start labeling them and making accusations and so on, Gnosticism. And I'm not completely defending all of those who do Harfan, and I'm not completely agreeing with those who offend them and criticize them. I want to make it clear that I'm not taking either party's side, because there are some mistakes and some truth in both parties. Any science, any knowledge that is not from Ahlul Bayt is not 100% accurate, but it doesn't mean that we cannot study, for instance, medicine, and we only use the medicine that is taught by Ahlul Bayt. We should study the medicine taught by Ahlul Bayt. We should make that, as long as we have confirmation that these ahadith are from Ahlul Bayt, that would be the constant, and everything else is the variable that should revolve around them. But it doesn't mean that we're not allowed, or we shouldn't be doing any research through, for instance, schools that are led by or pioneered by non-Muslims or non-believers or not followers of the Ahlul Bayt. Similarly, when we look at, for instance, Gnosticism. Okay, there are scholars who wrote about it, spoke about it. They're not followers of Ahlul Bayt. Some of them might be on the borderline. Some of them may be accused of even having some level of shirk, misunderstanding of Tawheed, for example. But does that mean that we cannot take anything from them? That is a wrong attitude. And it is a wrong attitude to think that anything that they say is accurate and right. So we have to assess things. But if they have some truth there, if they have some good suggestions, good advice, like today, for example, if we have, for instance, psychology. Okay, psychology, in some areas they are very much, mistaken. They have misunderstood things, and in some areas they're beneficial. Okay, should we say we cannot study psychology, or we cannot use their counseling methods to treat certain problems or deal with certain issues? That's also the wrong attitude. To assume that everything that they say is correct is the wrong attitude as well. Freud, for example, who's considered the god of psychology or the father of psychology, I say the god is because sometimes they treat him as a god. That whatever he says is like it's the truth and nothing else. He is he has some good things that he's taught and established, but he has a lot of errors too. So that's something to keep in mind. Similarly here, it is perfectly fine to look at the works of others, but you will find that Allama Naraqi and our scholars in general, whenever they look at these works, they assess them, they analyze them, they criticize them, and then they draw certain conclusions and suggest that this is the truth according to the author as well. And they are always, mashallah, our scholars have always displayed humbleness, and some of us, we feel like we're so opinionated that we feel like our opinion is the correct one against our scholars, and this is something we need to really work on, purify from. Back to the section we were at. It's been a few weeks, so I will just a couple of weeks, I think it has been. So I'll just quickly do a refresher on where we were at. The last section we finished with was about how ilm al-akhlaq, the science of ethics, is the most honorable because of its subject being the most significant. لشرف موضوعه وغايته. I also wanted to just remind everyone the English book that you have in the group is not the complete translation. It is a summary. I have clarified that, verified that, and it is a summary. It is very good or relatively good, the translation and what they've summarized, but I have been doing my work on the Arabic, on the original book, not on the summary. And so there might be some more details that I will be sharing here and there. It would be important for everyone to do some reading and familiarize themselves. And inshallah, through what I share, it'll be even, things will be more clear, inshallah. So the section that we were at was about the significance of this knowledge, and he clarifies that the purpose of ilm al-akhlaq is to help insan reach perfection or reach close to perfection, kamal. Or each kamal is not necessarily perfection, it's more completion. Okay, kamil is complete, not necessarily perfect. So when we say kamal, some people translate kamal as perfection. It's more of completion. So I guess the similar term that is used in English is to be the best version of yourself. to reach the best level that you can reach. The goal is that. The goal for insan, for a human being, and the soul of human being, not the body of a human being, to reach its best, to reach the highest level that it can reach. Since that is the case, and since we recognize that we are the soul and not the body, as a believer, inshallah, we all recognize that we are the soul, correct? We are not the body. The body is only a vehicle that carries us from the time that the soul is put into that body, from pregnancy, from the womb of the mother, until death. Once death comes, the body completely, the soul completely departs the body. Initially, it is close, not necessarily physically, but close in terms of the place, the people, and so on. So familiarity, perhaps. We don't necessarily fully understand how, and that closeness, how exactly it works. However, initial level, it's not too far until eventually there's a bigger gap, and the believer ends up in the circle of the believers in Barzakh, and the non-believers will be struggling on their own. Some of them could be even like the hellfire. We seek refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that. And so the body is the vehicle. What we're speaking here of the self or the nafs, we're speaking of the soul that needs to be perfected or improved so that it reaches its best and the completion and the best level that it has the capacity or the capability of reaching. We said it is through the ruh that the insan can reach the highest levels, and the value of insan is through his akhlaq, through his ethics, through his morality. A human being should not be valued by how much they earn or how much they have in terms of savings, or what kind of a car they drive, or what watch they wear. All of these things are perishing, and they are attached to the body. A human being should be assessed by their ethics and their morality, their generosity, their kindness, their honor, all of the beautiful human qualities. Not even an important point that I want to either. A scholar or a alim who does not
Sorry, Sheikh, I think
they are in a,
I think the connection a couple of times has been cutting out, so I'm not sure if it's so far it's fine, but it has cut off a couple of times, I think.
Is it from my side, you think?
I think so.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can see. How is it feeling now? I changed to the Wi-Fi from.
It's so far it's fine. I think
Okay.
I think we'll see if it's holding up.
Maybe it was the. Okay, so hopefully this will work, inshallah. Okay, if there's any problem, let me know, inshallah. So the point I was making is that it's not how much knowledge we have, it's not how much information or knowledge we have, it's how much we actually practice the knowledge that we practice. However, again, as we study this science or this field, it is important to realize how significant it is. So yes, studying it is significant because of the subject and the goal, the mission. But if we study it and we don't put it into practice, then it is actually a worse situation. We're better off not knowing if we're not going to practice. Although that is that's a if you have questions and you ignore them, or if you have the capability of learning, or you ignore wanting to learn because you don't want to practice, that in itself is a problem. There were a couple of there was a hadith that I guess we were that was the last part that we discussed, which is when the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Al-balahatu adna ila al-ikhlas min fatanatin batra." He says, if one is balaha is to not be so smart, okay, to be you could say gullible, to be simple-minded, whatever you want to translate that. Balaha is better for sincerity than smartness, which is incomplete. Okay, so to be smart but not use our smartness, our level of intelligence, not use it, not complete it with learning and practicing, that is worse than being simple-minded and not so smart. The ayah that the section ended with is وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا, come to the houses from their doors. So the Quran says, come to a house or a structure from the door, meaning everything has, now this could be taken literally. In this case, the metaphorical meaning here is that we need to find out which way to enter into a field, the field of knowledge in general, and especially Islamic knowledge. The gate, according to the scholars of akhlaq, the gate is in fact ilmul akhlaq, studying this science and purifying, because otherwise we accumulate knowledge and we are not practicing, and we're putting more burden on ourselves. So the gate to all other sciences, especially in terms of sciences that lead to nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is ilm al-akhlaq. So we humble ourselves and we purify, and therefore when we learn, we practice better. The next section is the section on the names of the nafs. So classifications and names given to nafs, and also the four faculties or strengths of the nafs, four directions that pull the nafs. The one thing we have to understand is how nafs is immaterial. So when we're speaking of nafs, we're speaking of something abstract of matter. It's not a material thing. Okay. So whenever we're speaking of its levels, its strengths, and so on, it is not the material thing. This is important to understand, because some of these faculties may seem related to the world of matter, to material things. However, what we're speaking of are the tendencies or the powers, the drive of the nafs, because of those material things. So the drive is in the nafs. It's still abstract of the matter, or it's still immaterial, non-material, just to clarify. The one is the one thing to understand is we spoke, I think at one point we did discuss how we have the ruh. Sometimes we speak of the ruh, and sometimes we speak of the qalb. And also we have the aql. Okay, Quran sometimes uses aql, sometimes qulub. Lahum qulubun, they don't understand with their qulub. Okay, so the qalb is the one that understands, comprehends, or is it the same as the aql? What about the ruh, for example? Nafs is the self. Okay, now these terms that are used, they are referring to similar thing but not the same. So he clarifies. He says it's based on which aspect of the nafs that we're speaking, that we say it's ruh, or we say it's aql, or we say it's qalb. If we're speaking of the essence that gives life to our body, then we're speaking of the ruh. So he says it is called ruh, or the soul if you wish, because that is what gives life to the body. So that the almost like the core that is non-material, non-material core, that non-material heart if you wish. Okay, the non-material heart that gives life. You know, the material heart that gives life is the qalb. Here, the ruh is the non-material life that's giving life to, or the non-material core that's giving life to us. The second name that is given to the nafs, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of it, is aql in the Holy Quran, or ulul albab, lub. Lub is the core, the inner core, the seed, meaning the what's inside, the aql. But again, the aql, we're not speaking of the physical brain that's in our skull. Rather, we're speaking of the power of reflection, which is also the power. The power of reflection is related to what? Is it the body or the soul?
Soul.
Ahsantum, ahsantum. So we're still speaking of the soul, however, or the self, me reflecting, not my brain reflecting. My brain translates my reflections to my body. This is what the job of the brain is. Just like the heart in the body translates the emotions, my emotions, on my body. Okay, so the different states of the heart, the beating, the different speed of beating of the heart, all of this reflects my emotions. So it's my emotions, not the emotions of the heart, the physical heart, and not the emotion, not the thinking of the physical brain. It's reflecting the thinking of the aql, and so the aql is still the self. Okay, are we speaking of the ruh being split into different things, the aql and the qalb and the ruh? No, it's the same thing, but we call it ruh when we're speaking of the core that's giving life to the body. We call it aql when we're speaking of the power of reflection and intellect, being intellectual, the intellectual power. And we call it al-qalb when we're speaking about the emotional aspect of it, or its ability to change in terms of even the emotional change. Subhanallah, the reason that qalb is called qalb in the Arabic language is, according to the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, it is named qalb is because it can change. Because the Arabic meaning of qalb literally is when you turn something. If I turn my hand, like this is my hand now, if I turn it, I qalabtuha, I turn my hand. That is called qalb. Okay, so qalb became a noun from a verb. Qalb as a verb means to turn. Okay, and qalb as a noun is the heart. Why? Because the core, the heart, the self has the ability to turn, loving, not loving, uh, sometimes positive in the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes not so positive. It's we feel like we lack spirituality sometimes we feel like very spiritual and strong. So these changes are the reason why it's also called qalb. So we have the ruh, we have the aql, we have the qalb, all of them referring to the self, the nafs. Now this is the nafs, and these are the names of the nafs. The powers that the nafs has, or the faculties that the nafs has, are four. According to ulama al-akhlaq, they say they are four. It has four faculties, or four directions that pull. One is the intellectual faculty, and it is considered the angelic faculty. It is considered the honorable, the heavenly faculty. The other one is the faculty of anger. They call it al-quwwa al-ghadabiyya, the strength or the power of anger. Meaning what? They consider that to be the beast-like power of the nafs. And we're not speaking of the body. Body is the nafs is affected by the body because of the needs of the body. If we do not detach from the body, we may be stuck in either the anger faculty, or the other faculty, which is called the desire. So we have the anger and the desire. Anger is considered like wild beasts, like some of the predators. Even one of the typical examples they use is a rabid dog, like a dog that ready to attack, or wolves, sibah, or beasts like flesh-eating predators. That's typically the term used for the explanation or the example given for this faculty of anger. The faculty of desire, they consider it more like also like some animals, but not the beast part of the animal, but the desire of eating, like certain animals that just eat all the time. Okay, they're grazing all the time, grazing, and perhaps the mating, for example. So those desires that they basically those animals have, that are also, they are necessary for the body. The body has those needs. The body needs the food to sustain, and obviously, as humanity, to sustain, we need to reproduce. So those desires have their needs. I mean, their necessity. However, if that is the drive, and the intellect is not more powerful than the drive of the desire, or the faculty of the desire, then it'll be a disaster. And that's why they call it bahimiyya. Bahimiyya is like the cattle type animal, or certain animals, including the typical example they give is actually the pig. We'll come to some analogy that he uses. And the last one of those faculties, so we have three faculties. We said intellect, and the anger, desire, and the imagination, the power of imagination. Now, the power of imagination, or the power of wahm, is delusion. Okay, so they call it delusion and imagination, between the two. Now, this is also a power that it is there, and it is part of the faculties that we have. Through it, we are capable of imagining things that don't exist. understanding things that we cannot see because of the ability to imagine things that don't exist. So it's a good ability. However, again, it has to be analyzed. It has to be controlled. Everything has to be analyzed, and the direction should be given by the intellect, not by those powers. And they consider this imagination part, or imaginary or wahmi faculty, as the devilish one. Why devilish? Because it is through it that the devil or the shayateen are able to manipulate us, give us the wrong information, or give us certain things as information or certain things as realities when they're not realities. They're lies, their assumptions, their imagination, whatever it is. Like, for instance, when we assume something wrong about someone who says something or did something or is not present even. Somebody's late to a get together, and all sorts of assumptions start coming to our minds. Where do they come from? They call that as the imagination, the faculty of imagination, or wahm, delusion, imagination and delusion. And that faculty is basically considered the devilish, because it is the gate for shaitan to do his manipulation and his basically whispering and misinforming us and so on. He says the first one, meaning the intellectual faculty, its work is to understand. Its work is, or its job is, to understand the truth, distinguish between truth and falsehood, distinguish between good and bad, distinguish between beauty and non-beautiful, or what is ugly, distinguish between things that should be done and things that we should not be doing, qualities that are good and praiseworthy, and qualities that are bad or condemned. So this is the power of intellect. This is what the faculty of intellect does. The second one, if we call it anger, the faculty of anger, or the beast within us. The job of that faculty is basically to have, again, as it's described, anger, for us to be angry in positions where we need to be angry, where we could, for instance, defend ourselves. If one is attacked, they can defend themselves. That is a powerful thing, but it also is a power that could make us act territorial, for example, get angry over the wrong things and then attack and oppress people, for example. So this is the other faculty. The other faculty, the third one, we said, is the faculty of desire. Anything that basically has to do with what the animal needs within us. Basically filling our stomach, the desire for food, desire for other aspects, including reproduction and so on. Having a lot of hunger in that department and not controlling that department by the intellect is the problem. Otherwise, that is the job of it. The work of it is to have those desires, those needs. And again, the last one allows us to have even planning, coming up with solutions, because you have to imagine the future of what you're doing and the consequences of it and what could happen. So you use your imagination, you use your thinking and analysis and what could happen to come up with possible solutions. So sometimes even to come up with a plot against an enemy, you need that power. If you want to try and solve a problem between two people, for example. You have to consider, okay, if I say this, this is the result of it could be this, so I need to say something different, for example. All of this is the power of, again, imagination, which is a faculty that is within the nafs or the soul. However, all of these need to be controlled with the intellect. This is why, again, the intellect is considered the angelic faculty or the heavenly faculty. As we said, all of these faculties are important and they are necessary. However, they need to be at all times controlled by the intellect. If that does not happen, then the opposite of, for example, not controlling the faculty of imagination is telling lies for personal gains. Okay, anger is basically to, through jealousy to become angry, which is that territorial animal behavior. To be jealous and angry and then harm and oppress others because of that, or become, for instance, what we call hamiyya or asabiya, racism and that kind of, feeling, having that patriotism that could lead to, again, oppressing others, oppressing people. Through, again, that same shahwa, the ghadabiyya, the power of the anger part. And subhanAllah, when you watch people, when they become jealous, for example, or they become racist, you see the rage building in them, and then the attack towards others, which often is oppressive. It is basically degrading their level of humanity, which is because of the lack of use of the faculty of intellect. If intellect was in control, this would not have been the case. It requires lots of struggling to keep intellect in charge of all. Easier said than done. This is why pretty much this is an introduction to a 2-volume book that is dealing with this, to try and deal with this issue so that we are able to be in control. The intellect is in control, through which we can reach our personal kamal and personal level of completion and the best of what we can be, or the best version of ourselves. He quotes in there the ayah from Surah Al-Ankabut, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Surely those who struggle for the sake of God, in the literal translation, fina, for our sake, for us, meaning here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the with the exalting plural pronoun. So he says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, we will surely guide them to our path. So if we do our part and start the struggle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide us on the way and will lead us to the right path. Within, again, we're still in the same section, he clarifies that some people suggest that the names that are given in the Quran for the nafs are related to those faculties. So they say النفس المطمئنة is al-aqila, النفس الأمارة النفس اللوامة is السبعية, and النفس الأمارة is bahimiyya. Meaning al-mutma'inna, the nafs that is at peace, is the nafs that is at the level of the intellectual nafs. And nafs al-lawama, the one that blames, is the one that is the sabah, the beast nafs, or the anger. And as al-ammara bisu, the one that is trying to command us to do the wrong, is the nafs that is bahimiyya, the desire. So they say the desire is what leads to the anger, and then therefore that is the lowest of nafs, bahimiyya, and then sab'iyya is the one that's driven by bahimiyya, and so it does the wrong thing and blames itself. This is why it's referred to as lawama. And then al-mutma'inna is the one that purifies and is in control of both sab'iyya and bahimiyya. This is a suggestion. I hope I didn't go so quick with this one. Is it clear what the suggestion is? So just to clarify, just in case I didn't hear anyone. I don't know if anyone said anything or made any comments, but just to clarify, just in case. So there are three names used for nafs in the Holy Quran. Sometimes Quran says النفس المطمئنة. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة. In another place, Quran refers to nafs as النفس اللوامة. And in another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء. النفس الأمارة ولا أمارة بالسوء. So these are three different names or types of nafs that Quran described. And they're not the same, obviously. So some say that each of those relate to these faculties. So mutma'inna is the aql, and ammara being the beast or the anger, and the lawama being the beast or anger, and the ammara being the desire. The reason they made this suggestion is because ammaratun bisu, the nafs that is telling us to do the wrong thing, is based on its desires. A nafs that is focused on our physical desires, therefore it tells us to be more possessive of worldly things, for example, more greedy. And if we need to fight somebody over it, then it gets angry. So then it does the wrong thing there, and so it becomes the lawama, the nafs that is blaming. It orders us based on the desire. Now it's blaming based on the beast behavior, based on the animal or the ferocious wild beast behavior. And when it's controlled, it is mutma'inna because it's no longer in that level of obeying the ammara. This is a suggestion. However, the author, he does not accept that this suggestion is accurate, or for this suggestion, this theory or suggestion to be correct. Rather, he says that these are three states describing how nafs is. These are the three different ways of how nafs could be, based on how these faculties are and how which one is in charge. These are not related to these specific faculties. These are states of the nafs, ahwal. A nafs that is completely led by anger and desire, and not allowing the aql to take charge. That nafs is ammaratun bisu. A nafs that is in the process of fighting between allowing sometimes the anger and desire to take control, and sometimes feeling bad for that and returning, seeking forgiveness, and so on. That is a nafsul lawama. And finally, the one that reaches a level where it is no longer allowing anger and desire to be in charge. Rather, the driver is the aql, the intellect. neither anger nor desire, nor even the power of imagination or the devil that uses it are in charge. Rather, actually, it is the intellect, al-aql, that is in charge. And this is why essentially al-aql is so praised in the hadith and in the Holy Quran. The hadith that is in Bab al-Aql, there's actually a section in the books of hadith about aql. And it says that the best creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-aql. The nafs, again, the nafs, as long as there is a fight within it, it has not reached the completion or the best version. It has not reached the al-mutma'inna, the nafs that is at peace. And God forbid if the nafs is in this fight, if it allows the anger and desire to be in control, and it becomes submissive to those, then it would be more of the ammara, more of the level of ammaratun bisu, rather than if it's like completely submission to the desires and anger, then it's ammaratun bisu, and it's not allowing aql at all to be in charge. Here is the example that I said he uses, or perhaps the parable he draws. He says the example of these three powers existing within the nafs, because we said all of these powers are within the nafs, traveling together. He says it's like a hunter riding on his ride, let's say a horse, he's riding on it, and he has a dog accompanying him, and he also has an eye for a spy, or a spy. Somebody who's working for an enemy of his, a spy or an eye that is accompanying him. If this hunter riding on the horse, if he's in control, he can achieve. His goal is to go and hunt. He can achieve that goal. If he allows the animal that is seeking its own desire of food or other desires, that animal can, I don't know if you've seen or if you've been on horse riding, they call it horseback riding. If you allow the animal to just eat, it wouldn't want to walk. You have to control it. If you just allow it to do whatever it wants to do, it just wants to eat. It just wants to graze all the time, or fulfill other desires as well. To fulfill other desires, it has to throw the rider as well. So if you allow the animal to be in control, here the example is similar to allowing the desire within us to be in control. Then you cannot complete your journey. You cannot complete the mission. If you allow the dog to be in control, and a dog that that the beast here, if the dog is not trained to come and get the hunt for you or help you find the hunt, and goes and rips the hunt into pieces, for example, or just consumes it itself, then again you have not fulfilled your mission. You have to train that beast. You have to train the animal or the desire. And if you're not mindful of the eye for the spy, for the shaitan, or that power of wahm and imagination or delusion, if you're not mindful of it and not in control of it, also your enemy will end up getting the hunt, not you. So again, mission incomplete. So he says this is these are the faculties within traveling together. And so the nafs is at all times these faculties traveling together. And one has to be always alert. Like a hunter on his, on his horse or on his ride, and accompanied by others, or a spy accompanied by his dog, has to always be mindful, watching what's going on, be in control at all times. He says if one does not, so the nafs is always a place of these powers fighting. And this is why we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of our anger and desire within us and the imagination within us, so that we are able, the intellect, me here, I'm speaking about my intellect, my aql, my pure soul that is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has to be aware of those things and therefore fights. Otherwise, if the anger takes control, might allow, make or push us towards oppression, harming others, having enemies, having vengeance and hatred. This is the ghadabiyya. Bahimiyya, the animal one, the animal desire one, it always tries to push us towards fulfilling those desires without any limitations. So therefore, indecency, greed, wanting more of, all sorts of, fulfilling desires. Nothing would be enough if we just allow it to be. And shaytaniyya is an interesting one, that the devilish one is the one that he says it actually is working on both, working on anger and desire to make them stronger. When we, for example, we have somebody who we think might be an enemy, the shaytaniyya here makes us make some assumptions. Based on those assumptions, we decide that this is an enemy and they want bad things for us. Now we become stronger in our animosity towards them. This is the work of, again, the devilish or the imagination, delusional power that is within us. And again, it could be leading to us becoming more, having more hatred, more vengeance, and therefore makes those faculties stronger against the intellect. Intellect, on the other hand, the job of the intellect in this struggle is to constantly, and this is important to keep in mind, constantly, we can never, ever let go of the reins. Constantly watch out for the beast, watch out for the desires within us, the animal desires within us, to make sure they're controlled by our intellect, by our if you want to say, call it moral compass, for instance, and so keeps us in on the right track. Therefore, fights against, again, the shaitan and the power of assumptions and imaginations and so on, to not allow that to strengthen those desires or the anger within us, rather allows the intellect to be in charge and to make the decisions. Before I continue, I want to make sure that I'm not going too fast. Any questions? Any clarifications?
Just a quick question. One is, in the book, especially, and maybe for next sessions, if there are segments that you recommend that we might be able to read before. I know it's not the same as the book that,
Yeah,
the one that you have in the Arabic version. So maybe at least we know, like, okay, from this page, or maybe even if we cover it over several periods, but we know which section that might help.
Where we are at roughly, yes.
Where exactly, even if it's
Yeah.
not going to be exhaustive or complete compared to what the
Yeah,
content
yeah.
you're following from the original source.
Sure.
That might help. And then also, I was just thinking with some of these concepts that you're talking about, if there is any practical example or suggestion that we can, because the theory can be very dry sometimes,
Yes, yes, yes.
So
yes.
I'm just thinking out loud if there is something practical,
Sure.
Small, a
Yeah.
small baby step, something.
Sure. Thank you for that. Now, this is very correct. We are in the introduction section, and it is pretty dry. There's very little practical stuff there. It is introducing concepts. It is basically this the whole purpose, and this is important. Again, this is good that you brought this up. To make it a little bit more, I guess, give us more enthusiasm, more ammunition why we want to study this, why we want to continue studying it, or focus on it. Basically, what he is trying to say, and this is not just him, any scholar of akhlaq that you go and study under, in the introduction, the focus is to make us understand us, okay? That who am I? من عرف نفسه, that leads us to the whole way, فقد عرف ربه. Who am I? What am I? What is, am I the desire, for example? Am I the anger, that's the rage that's within me? Some people, that's what they think they are. That's how I am. You don't like it, you have this attitude, people, that's who I am, No, that's not who you are. That's you allowing your desires, or you allowing your anger to take over, and not your mind. In this section, the goal is to introduce some of these concepts, but also to explain to us how important it is to study this. Then we come into the practical things. For each of those faculties, there are extremes. There are ifrat and tafrit, okay? And the goal is to keep it on the balance. Okay, so he gives then each of those. He will give, for example, when you have the faculty of anger, the one extreme is to be one angle is to be to use it. I mean, for oppression, one is to use it positively. In the positive, one extreme is to go to become extremely courageous. Another one is to become extremely what's the term? Negligent, irresponsible. Jumping into things, thinking it's courage, but actually acting irresponsibly, because that is, again, the aql is not in control of it. So he does get into those and gives examples. Eventually, we'll get to those. Each faculty, break it down into its how it translates into our day-to-day life, and how each of them has ifrat and tafrit, has two levels of extremes, and we need to maintain again the balance there. In terms of the sections of the book, I will try and through the index match what we're covering to what's in the index, so that perhaps those who want to do the readings and figure which one is related to what we'll be discussing, inshallah, I'll share that. I'll try to do that a few days before the session, so you have enough time, or they have enough time, everyone has enough time to read those sections, inshallah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Again, this section, he ends it with literally quoting the ayat from the Holy Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. One of the most important chapters of the Holy Quran on this is Surah Al-Shams. And as you know, Surah Al-Shams is recommended to recite on the day of Eid as part of Salatul Eid. Yes? One of the reasons is the fact that we are meant to, on the day of Eid, return. Eid is from Aud, return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when we're returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it happens through purification. It happens through reflecting on our journey, reflecting on ourselves, our nafs, where we are, what we're doing, how far or how close we are on our journey. Am I progressing? Am I, God forbid, regressing? So when I'm doing those reflections, I am purifying, then I'm returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the path to Him is the path towards perfection. He is the absolute perfection. He is al-kamal al-mutlaq. He is al-khair al-mutlaq. He is the perfect level and the basically complete and perfect level of all the goodness and perfection. And we returning to Him is to return towards beautifying and perfecting ourselves. So he says again, quoting, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. It is about purifying the nafs so that the aql, intellect, is in control, and we're not allowing our anger or our desires to be in control of our nafs. And the opposite, he says, and this is why he calls it aflaha. He gave the example of what? If you recall, the example of the hunter, yes? So the hunter was on a mission. What is the mission? To get the hunt, yes? If the hunter allows the dog to be in control of the journey, or allows the enemy, the spy, to be in control of the journey, or allows the horse, the ride, the donkey, the horse, to be in control of the journey, he will not get his hunt. So what is it? وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. He calls it the khayba. In the common Arabic is disappointment. Like you go back empty-handed. Okay? So Quran says, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Whoever betrays his nafs, does not do the tazkiyah, will be disappointed, will be empty-handed, will not get what he should be getting and what he could be getting. And aflaha is what? Victorious. So literally, he came back with a hunt. Okay. So again, that's the example. The application is a nafs that on the day of judgment will be given its book in the right hand and all the beautiful rewards. And the other, even in this world, I mean, inshallah, when we get to those sections and some of the discussions that we will have ahead, it actually is so beautiful when you realize that we start seeing the fruits here. It reflects in the hereafter. Yes, beauty, Jannah, beautiful things, and all of those descriptions of paradise and the people of paradise and the winners in the hereafter. We have all these ayat in the Holy Quran. وَعَلَى الْأَعْرَافِ رِجَالٌ يَعْرِفُونَ كُلًّا بِسِيمَاهُم. They are so knowledgeable. They're given all the knowledge by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're on elevations or pulpits of light, as we have in the hadith of. This is all the hereafter, but here we can have so much more. And sometimes we speak about some of our great scholars who reach certain levels and how they're living so peacefully, and how their words are like gold. I mean, you can't even say gold, not even diamond, nothing. Okay, you just want a few words from them. Their dua is so answered. They pray and it's answered. They have wisdom, they see things. All of this is because of tazkiyah. Okay, and we can only reach higher levels of humanity, of a good insan, of a good human being, who is praised, whose name remain here, who now, I mean, these days we are in Muharram and we remember Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. They are the pioneers in purification. How could they get there? It is through, again, purification. They got to a point where their name is eternal. You know, their fame, name, prayers for them, their effect for humanity is eternal. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his name and fame and the influence he has on humanity is just living on, and it grows bigger and bigger year after year. Why? Because of tazkiyah. And this is not a suggestion by the books of these scholars. This is Quran. قد أفلح. If Imam Hussein alayhi salam has reached falah, victory, you know, which we know he did. You know, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, when he was asked, who won? Ibn Rasulullah, who won the battle? It was after Karbala that they wanted to mock the Imam. You know, some people wanted to make fun of him and mock him. They said, who won the battle? He said, wait for the adhan time. If you hear the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you hear the adhan in the first place, and you hear the name of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we won the battle. And if not, then they won the battle. Because what? Their goal was to wipe out the religion and the name of the Prophet, wipe it out. They wanted to lead in the name of the religion, but all they cared about is just their positions, their power. And so the Imam was the winner, was victorious. And year after year, we see his victory bigger and bigger. How? Tazkiyah. We don't do tazkiyah, but khaba man dassaha, disappointed. The greater potential we have, the greater the disappointment would be. You know, like we have in economy, we call it opportunity loss. Yes, you have. I mean, if you realize that you missed out on a deal that you could have made $1 million by investing $1. So many people speak about this, especially when it comes to certain currencies. We leave that. I don't want to promote anything here, so nobody thinks I'm promoting it. But so many people think, oh, I could have bought it for $1 and now it's this much, for instance. Okay. Or I could have made so much money. You know, this is what we in this world, it's or in economy, it's opportunity loss. And the greater the benefits, or the greater the gain that we miss out on, the greater the regret. Yes. So imagine eternal regret that I could have been there and I didn't make it there. Eternal. There's no nothing, no return. There's absolutely nothing that we could do about it. Okay, you didn't invest in something, you missed that. Okay, invest in something else, or work hard, or whatever it is. Don't buy tickets of certain things that you don't go into buying lottery tickets. No, but work hard, invest in something else. But we can do something here. But once we depart this world and once we are given our places, if we did not purify, it's khayba, it's disappointment forever. Okay? And this is why it is, again, a Quranic concept, وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Just to complete this section, he says in the end of the day, however, whichever one of those powers is in charge, whichever one of those powers we allow to be in control, determines whether we are angelic or whether we are satanic, wal-'ayadu billah, or he says whether one is, God forbid, one is a dog or one is a pig. Okay, so we have the choice. Now, why? He says the pig indulges in desires, no consideration for anything. Eats anything. Okay, just fill the stomach, anything, no matter how dirty it is. Okay, and so they consider it being now. Again, pig is a creature of God. Nothing against the pig as a creature of God, but it's an example. It's a good example of something that is filthy, for instance. Okay, in its nature, that's how it's created. Okay, so he says one who completely indulges in desires with no consideration, that's a pig. One who allows his anger to be in control, that's a rabid dog, okay, wild beast. And one who allows the assumptions and imagination to be in control, that's what? That's satanic. That is a shaitan, a devil. And obviously, the one whose intellect is in complete control, he describes him as an angel. And so we have to choose which one of those I want to be. Okay. Now, yes, you might say, okay, sometimes I do use my intellect, but sometimes I give in to my desire or my anger, okay, or my shaitan. Okay. So this is a nafs that is struggling. Okay. That's nafs al-lawama, stuck in that. And we need to get, we need to ascend higher. Okay. So there is that level or that layer of a nafs that is, still struggling until and unless, and this the goal is, inshallah, this group that is with us, the goal is we want to reach nafs al-mutma'inna. This is a potential, this is available for us. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it available. He did not praise it and describe it and send prophets to purify us. He says, he sent you the messenger. Why? يعلمهم الكتاب ويزكيهم or يزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب. They're used actually in different ayat. They're used in a different order, perhaps because they should be together. Purification and knowledge, or seeking knowledge. So he teaches us and purifies us. And this is the goal of the Prophet. This is the goal of the Quran and guidance. And this is something that's available to us. Why would we miss out on it? Why would we live in eternal regret that I could have gotten there? I could have gotten higher or better. And therefore, again, if we allow our anger, for example, to make us oppress, dhulm, okay? Dhulm, how does it get wiped? We will have to go through a level of purification, even if it's barzakh, even if it's difficulty of the day of judgment. Wal-'ayadu billah, if it's big, some people may have to go through a level of purification in some level in, God forbid, hell. Okay, can we afford that? If not, then let us get our aql in control. And this is again, the summary of the book. I read a little bit of the summary. The summary cuts out a lot of the encouragement part. It gives the very basic, the theory that he's giving. It cuts out some of the examples he gives from the work of Aristotle and others that he does quote. Yes, there's a question.
I don't think there's a question, maybe.
Okay, so maybe just a mistake.
On that point of purification that you said, what about, in al-hasanat yudhibna as-sayyi'at, for example?
Yeah. So there is obviously al-hasanat yudhibna as-sayyi'at is a beautiful, one of the most, actually, in some respect, it's considered the most promising ayah in the Holy Quran. There's another one that yubaddilullah sayyi'atihim hasanat, which is the most promising. So changing evil acts into good deeds. Okay, but there has to be some level of some level of retribution or fixing the issue. Okay, so some hasanat, especially when it comes to oppressing people. Okay, so let's say I spoke ill of people. How am I going to solve this? One solution is I go and speak well about them. Okay, I do so many good deeds that I can afford to give them some, make a transaction with them. Okay, this is it. Otherwise, there would be oppression, and God is not oppressive. There would be oppression if I say that I can hurt people, oppress people, and then just go and pray and God will forgive me, or do some charity and God will what happens to that person who was oppressed? See, So that there is a low level of accountability, and therefore we need to try and purify to not oppress. And if we do, if we have oppressed, God forbid, then there are ways of solving it. Okay, for instance, we have a concept of Radd al-Madalim. Okay, Radd Madalim. It's the which is what it is a charity in case you oppress somebody. Okay, it applies in many. It could. It's a broad topic. Okay, it could be something that, okay, I don't know. Maybe I consumed someone's wealth without his permission or her permission, so I'm paying this as a charity on their behalf. That's the basic level of it, but that could be more than that. Okay? Now, paying charity on their behalf, you paying. Okay, if, let's say, for example, I mixed in my money. Somehow, I took the money of Brother Ali Rada. Okay, unintentionally, I took some of his money. Okay, or maybe at the time it was a mistake in the calculations or whatever. And now there's a possibility that I owe him. I can't reach him in any way. So I say, you know what? I'm going to pay this much money on behalf of Ali Rada as charity. Okay? Hoping that on the day of judgment, when he says, this was my money, I'll say, I paid charity. And he says, okay, that's that's fine. Thank you. What if I did something? What if it wasn't something money related, but I spoke ill of, okay, a brother. I took some. I made some comments that caused a problem for them. Okay, somehow I harmed them. Okay, how can I fix that? Also, Radd al-Madalim helps. Okay, pay charity on behalf of those people who I may have wronged. Okay, so I'm doing some good deeds to cover that. So there has to be a level of
There will
accountability.
be an effort to, for example, if you spoke ill and you know the person, maybe you can approach them to ask
Seek
their
forgiveness.
forgiveness rather than just donating on their behalf.
No, yes. So this is a tricky one. So sometimes if you go and ask them for forgiveness, it may cause a problem between you and them. Okay, so that's not necessarily a good thing. You may have caused a bigger problem now. You have now his heart is charged against you. Okay, is that a good thing? That's not necessarily. We need to reconcile between people. So how do I fix that? Fixing backbiting is to speak well about them. Okay, to change what you said, fix it. Go and speak well about them. Spread good things about them. Okay, seek forgiveness for them. Pay charity on their behalf. If you can, in some cases, you know that, okay, I can also approach them and seek forgiveness. But people often think that this is the way. And you know what happens often? They go and ask, and the person says, I forgive you. But does he really forgive them? Deep from his heart, or it's just a word that he says? You know what I mean? Somebody who, it's very hard. I've had people who came up to me and said certain things, that we said this and that about you. Okay. And initially, in the immediate thing, we say, Allah samhak, may God forgive you. Okay. But I can attest to that myself. That initial thing is a very formal thing. It's not genuine. Okay. Then I have to work hard on myself to forgive them. Okay. I go now. Does everyone do that? Would everyone go and force himself that I have to forgive because God will not forgive me if I don't forgive people? And remind myself of these beautiful concepts of the importance of forgiveness, so that I get myself to the point that I'm willing to forgive. So that is really tricky. So this is why I say, it's not about saying forgive me, it's about fixing it. Okay, go and speak well about them. Go and to the group that you spoke ill about, in front of, speak fix it, fix that, or spread goodness to counter that. Okay, even if you cannot get that same group, sometimes you speak ill of somebody in a gathering and you have no control over where it went from there. Okay, now you have to counter it. So speak well about them more than what you ever did. When you did backbiting. I saw a comment. I cannot read it if you can.
Yeah, I can read that. So someone mentioned that Radd Madhalim is only, they heard that it's only for if the person who you wronged has passed. So to clarify, based on what the discussion here is it possible to do the Madhalim for living people too?
Yeah, if you can't reach them, if there's no way of reaching them, or you don't know who it might be even.
Or as you mentioned, it's not practical to ask for the forgiveness, for example.
That's a bit, that's seeking forgiveness is one thing, but Radd al-Madhalim is specifically jurisprudentially about, paying charity on behalf of people. It could be about people who passed, it could be about people who you have no way of finding. Okay, you made a transaction with somebody and you don't even remember his name or anything about them. How are you going to reach them? Okay. Some people, unfortunately, I know people who used to make transactions that are considered haram, okay, taking the right of people, okay, underpaying them, okay, and they did that for years, okay, and now they don't know how many people, okay? How am I going to get all these people, okay? So they pay Radd al-Madhalim on behalf of all these people. They have to make an estimate and be generous and pay, so it applies there. And the paying, if you oppressed in other ways, okay, you harm somebody in a way that requires diya, for example. Okay, so accidentally, I don't know, broke someone's property, for example. Okay, accidentally, or child unintentional at the time, didn't know that I have to fix things, harm somebody that requires diya. Okay, all of these things. Now I don't know if I know them, I go and find them and I fix it. I don't know them. Okay, I don't know how to get to them. Then you pay Radd al-Madhalim. I hope that clarifies. We have a few minutes. I would like to read the hadith that he finished with this hadith. So again, we're speaking of these four faculties or powers that the mind or the self has: the intellectual, the desire, anger, and imagination. He says, if aqila is in control in a way, and there's no tanazu, there's no pushing and pulling and fighting between them, then one will reach to the highest level of being godly, being angelic, being malakuti, spiritual, where they will receive gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wisdom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens their eyes. They see things beyond what we can see in a physical, even in the physical world, in a physical way. And then he ends with the hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, إن الله خص الملك بالعقل دون الشهوة والغضب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the angels specifically intellect without desire and anger. And he gave the animals those two and did not give them intellect. Okay? And he honored insan. وَشَرَّفَ الْإِنسَانِ بِإِعْطَاءِ الْجَمِيعِ. He gave them all. He gave him all. Now, why honored by giving him all? Angels don't have desire and anger. Why is it an honor to have all of those? He says, فَإِنْ انْقَادَتْ شَهْوَتُهُ وَغَضَبُهُ لِعَقْلِهِ صَارَ أَفْضَلَ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. If his desire and anger is driven by his intellect, If his intellect is in charge of everything, all faculties, then he is better than malaika, angels. لوصوله إلى هذه المرتبة مع وجود المنازع. Because he reached this level despite the presence of that battle. You know, the intellect is battling those desire and anger. والملائكة ليس لهم مزاحم. For malaika, there's no disturbance, there's no challenging, you know, that's what they are. So yes, if we work on ourselves, fight those faculties that are necessary for us and important, but they could take us into an animal way or devilish way. If we fight them and have our intellect be in control, then we will be above the malaika, inshallah. Any questions? Any other?
Yeah, one question came in.
Yeah.
How do we calculate the right amount for Rava Mazal?
The Rad al-Madalim, if you know
Yeah.
the amount, you do it based on what you know. If not, it would have to be, again, this is basically one trying to free their what they owe, free their neck. Okay, I would say give generously, make a generous estimate, and that's similar to when somebody doesn't have a clue of how much they owe in terms of prayers or fasting. Okay, they do an estimate. The minimum is wajib. Beyond that is amma fi dhimma. And some people, they pray amma fi dhimma every day, you know, just to make sure that they're covering it. So in Radd al-Madalim, they can give what they know for sure. Let's say I know for sure I took some money from someone. Okay, I took $500 from an individual. I know for sure I owe it to him, but there's no way I could reach this person. He passed. I cannot reach his heirs because even if he passed, you have to give it to his heirs. Okay, but if I can't do that, either he passed, he has no heirs, or whatever it is. Okay, there's absolutely no way of me getting to them or to the heirs, then I would pay that exact amount. Okay, but if I don't know, it's an estimate, and a generous estimate would be better for our akhirah, inshallah.
Thank you. I think that was the only question that I see.
Okay, inshallah, I'll try to get the sections that the relevant sections in the English summary. I will share it in the next couple of days, so we are ready for it for next session, inshallah.
Yeah, if you have any of the Arabic section even that you feel is important, maybe we can try to translate it using some other.
Okay, yes.
It'll help us to.
It's a PDF. PDF can be Yeah, it can. We can copy.
We can take sections from that too.
And do it. Yes. Okay, inshallah.
If whatever is possible, inshallah.
Thank you very much. May Allah bless you all and accept your azadari or your commemorations of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his family members, and grant us the opportunity to continue visiting them and continue following them and get their intercession, inshallah. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد.